too sure if I can pull that off, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So, forgiveness, finding freedom within. This is a definition. Hold on a second. Sorry, I must just make this smaller. This is a definition that, I don't know, I think it was Google Gemini gave me. Forgiveness is the intentional, voluntary choice to let go of resentment, bitterness, anger, and the desire for revenge towards someone who has hurt you. So, voluntary choice, amazing, because I think we do have to choose it. But I think easier said than done because we can choose it, but then we can still struggle to actually do it. So, a little bit more on what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is an internal shift, it's changing your own emotional response so that you can find peace of mind rather than waiting for the other person to change. It's a gift to yourself because if you can forgive yourself or someone else, then it releases your body and mind from the mental stress and the potential health risks of carrying a grudge. And it is about acknowledging, feeling, processing, and letting go of the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, the sense of betrayal, whatever feelings you might have. Again, easier said than done. And it is about healing the urge to hold on to bitterness or to punish the person who did you wrong. Now, I just want to say something about the punishing the person who did you wrong. I have a few things to forgive in myself and other people, and I don't consider myself as the kind of person who wants revenge. But you know what? I've discovered that that's not true because when I really, really connect, especially if it's a nice fresh one, if I really connect to how angry I am at someone, I'm hoping that karma is going to sort them out. So I don't necessarily go, well, I don't know, I hope bad things happen to them. I deny that I have that thought, but I'm like, yeah, well, hopefully karma will get them because then I absolve myself, because then karma did it. The universe takes care of it, right? Not me. That's still wanting revenge. And that is still needing that person to be punished, which means that you haven't released it entirely. So forgiveness is really about setting ourselves free. It's less about the other and more about ourselves. And in setting ourselves free, we do set the other person free. So when we have these feelings of whatever the anger and the bitterness is against someone because they did something to us that we perceive caused us more pain than anything else, and that it was wrong and it was unfair and all of those thoughts and feelings that we have around this, then it's coupled to the wanting revenge thing. We don't want to let them off the hook. But this is not about letting them off the hook. This is about freeing yourself. So as St. Augustine said, resentment, which is the opposite of forgiveness, is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So very often the other person is going off on their merry way or not, but there's nothing you can do about the other person. The only one that you can really do anything about is you. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but it might have been in the law of opposites one. I think it was in the law of opposites. I explained to you, I drew that little diagram, right, of the wave, right? And I said to you that light can be both a wave and it can be a particle. And those two little particles of light in a photon, they spin with equal and opposite charge, but they're connected to each other. They're entangled. There's this concept of entanglement. So when I have perceived that you have done something awful to me and I need to forgive you, we are entangled energetically. Even if you have moved to another continent, energetically, we're entangled. And when I change my spin, your spin changes. When I was in practice and I had patients, usually women who came to see me complaining about their spouses or their relationship, whatever the relationship they had with their spouse, or sometimes with their kids, but mostly their spouse was the source of what was making them so angry. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'd explain this thing about the fermion to them and say, well, if you change your spin, the other person will change. And she almost always said, well, why should I do all the work when he's the asshole? And my answer was always, well, he might be the arsehole, but he's not sitting here complaining about you. You're sitting here complaining about him. So you can't change his assholeness necessarily, but you can help to set yourself free. And in setting yourself free, you do help to set the other person free also. Okay. So, and by hanging on to it, you keep yourself entangled. Energetically, you and the person or the people or whatever are still entangled. So it's important that we forgive from the point of view of being able to set ourselves free. So I'm going to talk about these sort of as we go along, right? But these were just when I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, there are key elements in forgiveness. So forgiveness is not something that you wake up one morning and you can just do. I don't believe it is. There are things that you have to consider. And the one is actuality versus reality, right? And we spoke about this in the law of opposites talk as well. So we all have our individual reality. And our individual reality is basically our filter of reality that anything that comes in through our senses, it passes through our filter and then we make a judgment about it. So if something happens, if you all go, oh, I love your new pashmina, my judgment is you've all got amazing taste. If one of you goes, ugh, I hate that thing, it's really ugly, there's so many garish colors, my perception of you might be, well, you've got poor taste. What do you know? You don't know anything. Okay. So reality is different for each one of us. It can be similar if we've got similar filters, but it's different for each one of us. And this is at the level of our conscious, waking, rational mind. We all have our own individual reality. But at the level of our superconscious mind or our limitless spirit, there is something called actuality. At the level of the grand organized design, remember that's what God stands for, the grand organized design or designer, there is actuality. And in actuality, things are neutral. Now, this is incredibly challenging. Okay. So I please want to just start this off with a caveat. I don't expect you to be able to be neutral about some childhood trauma that you had when you were a child and were defenseless and could do nothing. Okay, please, that's not what I'm saying, right? I'm also not suggesting that we should start practicing trying to connect to actuality about really, really hectic things like, I don't know, child trafficking, or I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything worse than that, right? But war or whatever the case may be, all right? So because this is not connecting to actuality is not our default setting. It's something we have to practice. And the more we practice this, it's a skill, the better we become at it. And I want to tell you, I've been practicing it for probably 16 years now. And there are some things I don't even try. I don't even try and find the neutrality because I know that my mind is not capable of it. But there are lots of things that I can do it on. All right. So I want to start off with, please do not pick the person that has inflicted the most pain on you and try and make that situation neutral in your mind because you are not going to get it right. I can tell you that now. And in actual fact, you might actually hurt yourself. So don't do it. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying start with something simple, right? Just start with something that is not hugely complicated. Like you go to the gym and you start lifting 1 kilogram weights. You don't start lifting 20 kilogram weights if you haven't actually done any exercise and your muscles are puny. You have to start with the small weights and you have to practice with them regularly until you can get to the big weights. Antoinette, I see you've unmuted. Do you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to add that I don't know, in my own experience, my own lab rat life experience, is that until I fully felt and processed whatever it is, and that can take a long time, I haven't been able to neutralize. I'm talking about the big stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about
Yes.
that. We are gonna talk about the feelings, the importance of it. So this is what I'm saying. Please don't let actually start here. These are just things that you want to have in your mind when you're considering maybe why you're struggling to forgive yourself or someone else. Okay. So the second one is the law of opposites, which we've spoken about. So the law of opposites says nothing's ever one-sided. It's always neutral. It's always, we've got two versions, reality, actuality. But our ego, our conscious mind, is the thing that polarizes everything into good or bad. And so your ego also wants to be right at all costs because your ego believes that that's what its right to life depends on, being right. All right. So your ego wants to maintain the moral high ground. Your ego doesn't want you to be the asshole. Your ego wants the person who hurt you to be the asshole. And so it wants to maintain the moral high ground at all costs, which is why this is hard. The other concept is that we have to take responsibility for our part in it. Now, I'm going to say there's a big but here again. So, if you had in utero trauma, if you had early childhood trauma, if you had an extremely abusive childhood, right? How must you take responsibility for that? You can't, all right? So, please don't actually apply this to those circumstances. Maybe there is a way we can do it, but quite frankly, I don't know what that is. So don't go there. That would be my advice. But when we've been wounded in our early childhood and it's resulted in our knee-jerk patterns of behavior, and now we're adults and we know that, and someone does something that causes us pain, we can't take responsibility for the situation, but we can take responsibility for what we're going to do with it, how we are going to choose to go through life. You know how you get some people, they seem like they've just chosen to be bitter and twisted. It doesn't matter what you say, they don't want to see the other side. It's like they're so attached to this way. Well, some of that is like autopilot, but some of that is also choice. And so the taking responsibility for our part in it is that, remember, we're those two little fermions. So let's just say Antoinette and I, Antoinette shares a secret with me and I blab the secret to all of you, let's just say. And Antoinette finds out and now she's hurt and betrayed. I would be, okay? She's hurt and betrayed because this is what I've done. It's not her fault that I did that. Not at all. But her responsibility is how she's going to respond to that situation. Responsibility is about how do we respond. And as adults, we actually can, with help, sometimes we need help, sometimes we can't do it on our own, but we can actually regulate that. So we can go, okay, my little fermion is spinning in the wrong direction. This isn't serving me. This is not working for me. I need to change this. Maybe we don't know how to change that, but that's why we ask someone to help us if we don't know how to change it. Okay? Antoinette?
Well, yeah, and I think so much of it is unconscious until it becomes conscious. And that's why very deep, compassionate, moment by moment self awareness, just developing that, is a very helpful starting point, because sometimes we don't even know we're having these knee jerk reactions, or they're so deeply embedded in our unconscious that they might be playing out in our health or in our relationships, but without us having any awareness till we do, if that makes sense.
100%. 100%. So that's like the underpinning of all of it, right? Is that a lot of this stuff is happening on autopilot, but we've been speaking about it for a long time now. There are ways of uncovering that also. Then our souls, all of our souls have a journey in this life. And, we don't know how many lifetimes we may have had before. And if you don't believe in lifetimes, we also don't know what we chose for this life. We don't know that because that's part of the forgetting. And so that's also actually part of this process. There is a cultural and moral obligation connotation to forgiveness. It's almost like when someone does something bad to you, it's really your moral responsibility to be a good person and forgive them. And that can be hugely pressuring because that pushes us into forgiving before we've actually done any of the processing and we're not ready for it. And we have the social system of reward and punishment. And so we believe that someone who's done something wrong needs to be punished. And so that also helps us to hang on to the resentment. Okay. So as Antoinette said earlier, very important, forgiveness is not about avoiding the feeling. And very often, forgiveness is what we go to because we don't want to feel bad any longer. So, all the stuff I've just said, set yourself free, you set the other person free, we want that so badly that we go straight to, okay, if I forgive this person, then I'll feel better. I don't have to feel my feelings of hurt, betrayal, bitterness, revenge. I don't have to connect to the part of me that goes, I fucking hope they get hit by a bus. Because I don't want to be that person who has that thought or that feeling. And so, because I don't want to be that person, because that would make me bad, I want to just go straight into, yes, I forgive you, right? So that I can avoid the difficulty. But before we can move forward, it's imperative that we have to accept the reality of what happened, our reality of what happened, and the feelings that come from that. So just use my example. I tell you all a secret, something that Antoinette has told me in absolute confidence. And now I've told it all to you. Antoinette can, I don't know, she can try and explain it away. She can try and be the bigger person to forgive me. But the truth is that if she feels devastated, hurt, betrayed, furious, wants to rip my face off. That's the reality of what she's experiencing right now. And that cannot be avoided because the more we try and avoid that, the more we end up in the shits. Hate to break it to you, but
And just a reminder, sorry, Loretta, that, and we've said this before, but we need to keep on reminding ourselves rage,
100%.
anger, grief, bitterness, lust, all those kind of feelings are the feelings we tend to not lean into, and then we end up in that anxiety, guilt, shame loop.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We're allowed to be angry. It's just about how we do
yes,
it. Sorry. So we've done a
exactly.
few podcast episodes on that. Yeah.
Exactly. So we can either say, I forgive you, all right, so that I forgive you so that I can be free, because we believe that once we're forgiven, then we can move on. And maybe you can move on, but unconsciously, you're actually not free. And that's why we've got the slide there that says the forgiveness delusion, because it's a delusion. It's a delusion to think that you can avoid the feelings, you can avoid the truth of the situation, and just move into forgiveness. What we really want to go for is, I thank you for this experience because I can see how it's served me in my life. Now, this is a big ask, okay? When you are stuck in bitterness and resentment and maybe shame. If I tell you something that Antoinette has told me in confidence that she feels deeply ashamed by, this is just going to exacerbate that, right? But there is a way that you can get to this. And I can attest to the fact that you absolutely can. And this is the way that we can free ourselves. So I'm going to tell you the story about that just now. So, okay, so just like practically, so how do we start? All right, because there's a couple of things that have to happen before the actual forgiveness part, right? The first is identify the hurt. Like, what is the truth? What is the truth for you? Antoinette's truth is, I thought I could trust Loretta. I obviously can't. She betrayed me, let me down. That might be the truth. And I am maybe devastated or ashamed or whatever she's feeling. Acknowledge the pain. Name the emotions. It's really important. And when
I
you
would be very furious. Never mind
no,
ashamed.
no,
Sorry.
she'd be enraged. Yeah, okay, exactly. Right. So name the emotions that arise. And you know what? If you feel in that moment that you hate the person, you hate the person. It's okay. We've got all these taboos against what feelings we shouldn't feel. Feelings can never be wrong. They're just feelings. It's what you do with the feelings, the consequences of the feelings, the actions that come out of the feelings. If you then take, I don't know, a gun and shoot me in the head, okay, well, that's a problem. There's a problem with that action, right? But the actual feeling is never the problem. So feel and process the emotions. We've spoken about that. We've got podcast episodes. We'll send you to the references. Feel and process the emotions, no matter how awful they are. And it might take you a long time. So be gentle with yourself. Just maybe you can only feel it for 1 minute a day. And then you get so overtaken by the rage. Or maybe today you cannot go to the rage. Well, then today you can't go to the rage.
But you can still acknowledge it, Loretta. Someone told, actually, my niece told me that years ago. Her yoga teacher told you if an emotion comes up that you feel like you can't deal with because it's too overwhelming. That happened to me 2 weeks ago. You can say, I acknowledge you.
Yes.
I know what this is. I'm naming it, but I just can't go there now. So could we just come back to it?
100%. Yeah. You put a pin in it, basically. You're not forgetting it. You're just going, okay, to be revisited when I have the capacity. And then make a conscious choice to forgive. So feel and process the emotions, accept the reality, right? The reality of what is, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and make a conscious choice to forgive. Now, making the choice doesn't mean that you can forgive, but choosing it, even though you don't know how, when we make a choice, we basically putting a pin into the future. We're going, this is what I am creating. I'm creating this journey of mine towards forgiveness. And you don't need to know how when you choose it. You just, I'm choosing that this is what I want to do. I can't do it right now, but I'm choosing that this is what I am aiming for. All right. And then release the need for revenge. But only my experience, you can only release the need for revenge when you allow yourself to feel the rage and the anger. Because if you're still angry, you're probably still going to want revenge. That's my experience. Don't minimize what happened or how it made you feel. Don't make it okay. Don't say things like, oh, it wasn't that bad, or maybe I'm just overreacting, or maybe she didn't mean it. Don't make it okay. And then remember that you can forgive someone, but you don't have to let them into your life. So this is the set the healthy boundaries. You can forgive someone, or you can be in the process of working on forgiving them, but you don't have to have them in your life. Or if you do have them in your life, you can have boundaries as to how much access they have to you, what they can expect from you. You can set those healthy boundaries because when you do that, you're basically saying to your subconscious, I value myself enough to keep myself safe. This person has just actually hurt me, violated me in some way, and I'm choosing to keep myself safe. And then, very importantly, practice the principle of reflective self awareness. What happened? Subjectively, what do you think happened? What did that make you think? How did it make you feel? How did it make you behave? Because remember, whenever we don't get what we want, our limiting belief and our coping strategies are triggered. And you might go, yes, well, I know what my limiting belief is and I know what my coping strategy is. You know what? I don't care if you know that, if you think you know that. Just do the exercise. And you know why? Because every time you do it, you actually add another little strand of myelin along a new pathway that says, this is what I'm choosing to do. I'm choosing to face reality because you cannot create unless you face reality. When we want to create, it's like we're trying to light a light bulb off a battery, a 12-volt car battery. You have to connect the negative clip. Doesn't mean this is the bad clip. This is just nomenclature, a negative clip and a positive clip. You have to connect the negative clip, which is the truth of how you're perceiving it. The positive clip is what you'd love to create. And when you put the two together, then the light bulb comes on. But you can't go straight to the positive clip and then just leave the negative clip off the battery. You're not going to light nothing. You're going to light, listen to my language. You're not going to light anything that way. So it's really important that you do this with self-compassion and without judging how you feel and how you're processing. Because very often the self-blame and I mean, that's common, right? And this is especially in like, when you've been a victim of some sort of violent kind of attack or a rape or something like that. The victims always blame themselves. We're like, maybe you shouldn't have, I don't know, worn the skirt, or maybe you shouldn't have smiled at the stranger, or maybe you shouldn't have been at that place at that time. Now you're judging yourself for something that actually happened to you. There's a difference between taking responsibility for your response and judging and punishing yourself, right? So, radical acceptance is really what we want to do. Radical acceptance of the truth of how we perceive the situation. Satguru says the way it is right now, in this very moment, is the way it is. It can be no other way. So, when you cannot forgive, when you would love to forgive someone, but you just cannot, we want to try and practice radical acceptance of what is true right now. And the way it is right now is I just actually don't have the capacity to forgive. I've got more processing to do. Eckhart Tolle says acceptance of the unacceptable is the greatest source of grace in this world. That's a tough one, quite frankly, because how are we supposed to accept the unacceptable? Well, I believe we accept the unacceptable when we go through some of the processes that we're going to describe. So the first one, okay, so again, I'm going to just big caveat here, all right? I think that we can all practice the mirror exercise to a certain extent. But once again, please do not choose something that is so charged that you actually cannot do it, okay? And if it makes you feel bad, stop doing it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is only part of a larger process, but I just want to introduce it to you so you can start seeing it in action. So the mirror, this comes from John DeMartini, right? So he says that every human mirrors your disowned part. So the people that you think are amazing, they're mirroring to you like your golden shadow, the parts of you that are amazing that you can't own. And the people that you think are assholes, they're mirroring to you the parts of you that you can't own. And we can use this as a way to integrate all these disowned parts of ourselves. So whatever we hate or despise in others, right? Please be clear here. I've said here are traits that we haven't yet acknowledged or loved within ourselves. So if you see someone who does something that you think is an act of pure evil, this is not about you going, where am I pure evil? Because you're not pure evil. What you want to do is you want to get very clear about what was the composite of what that person does. So let's not pick pure evil, please. Let's just pick something like, let's just say I lied. So I betrayed Antoinette. So my question to Antoinette was, what exactly did I do? Well, first of all, I betrayed her trust. I let's just say that's the main thing. I betrayed her trust. And how did I do that? Well, I told a secret. So now the question is, where and when in your life have you ever betrayed someone's trust? Not necessarily in the same way, but just where have you ever betrayed someone's trust? Someone trusted you to do something and you didn't do it. Or they trusted you not to do something and you did it anyway. So they trusted you not to tell your secret and you did. And have you ever told someone's secret? Now, I would be hard pressed to find someone who's never ever told a secret. My husband always says the only way to keep a secret is not to tell it to anyone, right? Because he believes that no one can keep a secret. So we've got to be very granular about this. So let me pick another example, like something like someone steals something of yours, right? Someone comes into your house and steals your phone. Now, you've never burgled anything. You've never gone into someone's house and stolen some of theirs. So the question is, what exactly did they do that you are so upset about? Well, they violated your privacy, for example. They didn't stick to the rules. They didn't stick to the laws. I mean, I'm fishing here for traits, right? So the question is, have you ever violated someone's privacy? You've never walked into their house and stolen something out of their house, but maybe you have actually. Maybe they put a boundary down that you can respect. Now you might go, yeah, well, that's not the same thing. Well, actually, if you break it down into its components, it actually is the same thing.
And sometimes it's stuck. Sorry, I was the one that was resisting this. Loretta and I debated it for ages, but I've just recognized a few of mine. I can't stand inconsistency in other people. It freaks me out totally. Anyone who's close to me knows that. And I think I'm inconsistent with other people, but with myself, I'm incredibly inconsistent. So it could also be stuff we do to ourselves.
100%.
And I hate hypocrisy. And I was so self righteously judging the hypocrites in my village. And there are a lot of them. And that's something I've had to sit with and go, am I a hypocrite? So I don't do the same kind of hypocrisy as they do, but I mean, for example, I would call myself quite environmentally sensitive, and yet I take a pile of waste to the plastic waste all the time. So I mean, it's an interesting one. We have to just be very careful
Yes.
that we don't use this as a self-punishing tool, because some of us are already so hard on ourselves.
And so if this is too hard for you, you've got to get someone to help you do this. The other thing is like a trait, like a hypocrite. It's quite like what you call a hypocrite and what I call a hypocrite might be too. So if it's a big thing, like hypocrite, what does that really mean? So maybe you think a hypocrite says one thing but does something else. Maybe you think a hypocrite is like pretends to like you when they don't. Now I might think, well, that's just being polite. That's just how you wheel the wheels of social disc. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You've got to be very careful. So you know what? Always take a big trait like hypocrite and then ask yourself, what exactly in your mind does a hypocrite do? Or like what are the like components of being a hypocrite? Because you might not be able to own a hypocrite, but you will be able to own some of those individual components. It makes it easier. Right? So that's what I mean by, axe murderer. Of course, you're not an axe murderer. Like murder. Who have you ever murdered? But how many of your own ideas have you ever killed? Have you ever, I don't know, killed someone's enthusiasm? Have you ever, like shut down a business and killed it? I mean, that's dramatic, but there are hundreds of ways that you can actually see. You might not kill any living things, But maybe you kill your dreams. Maybe you kill someone else's dreams, like your granddaughter or someone goes, Granny, 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 look, and you go, I don't have time now. Now you might go, well, that's not like murdering them. But you know what? If that you do that to that child 27 times in her life, even just once, and it makes a huge effect on her, you know, did you just kill something in her for that minute? Yeah, absolutely you did. So when you look at it that way, this is why this is challenging, okay? This is not forgiveness 101, guys. Sorry, this is not. This is somewhat forgiveness slightly advanced, but if you can do this, it's actually really valuable. And even more valuable is the second part of this. And the second part of is if you can change I forgive you to I thank you. The only way you can change I forgive you to I'm thanking you for this experience is when you ask yourself, how did this situation, how did it force me to grow? What did it force me to do? Like this situation. So let's just use the example of I betrayed Antoinette.
Oh, let's use a different
No,
example.
but no,
Let's
no,
talk about my mother or what she did or something.
no, no, no,
Okay.
because if we go to the mother, then we go to the childhood. Okay, I want us to stay in the
Okay.
adulthood. All right. So it's
Okay.
like so let's say if Antoinette confronts me, what did she have to, she had to be courageous. She had to stand in her truth. She had to stand up for herself. All right. Now, in the moment, that might have benefited her, but every time you do that, it has benefits that have a ripple effect. So when you ask yourself, how did this serve me in terms of my growth? How did it build my resilience? How did it guide my life values? How did it maybe change my perception of seeing someone? Maybe what it does is Antoinette becomes, maybe this is not real, but let's imagine Antoinette's like a terrible judge of character. And she just judges it. She just trusts everyone. And because she trusts everyone, she keeps on getting hurt, right? And what it does is it takes the scales off her eyes. It doesn't make her mistrust everyone. It just helps her to listen to her intuition when she senses a red flag in someone. Maybe one of her patterns was she senses the red flag and then she goes, oh no, I'm sure that that's not right. They probably are a really lovely person. Okay, maybe now when she's had this experience, she goes, when she gets that little hit of, okay, it doesn't mean that she immediately distrusts. It just means that she might actually go about the relationship in a different way, which serves her better and possibly the other person. Does that make sense? So this is not something that you can see in the moment. This is something that is easier to see in retrospect. And that's why you have to give yourself time. But here's the good news. It takes time to process all that emotions, all that other stuff that we just said. Name it, get real about it. What does it make you feel? Feel the feelings, process the feelings. The more you do that, the more it removes the resistance to you seeing how this benefits you. So, one of the benefits is if you do the work and you feel your feelings on this thing, it's going to become much easier for you to feel your feelings on anything else. And that the more you have a capacity to feel your feelings, you don't just increase your capacity for the negative emotions, my friends, you increase your capacity for the joy and the lightness and the freedom and all of that. So when you can see, when you're working through all of it, you can work with that. And this can come on the back of that. So when you've got a bit of distance, when there's a bit of time has gone by, and you're like, you know what? If this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have done this thing that's actually made a massive difference in my life. And it's also not always easy to find. But this is what, so this is not a great analogy, but this metaphor will stick. If you're stuck swimming in the sewer and I'm standing outside the sewer and you've basically got crap up to your eyeballs, you can't see the ladder to climb out of the sewer, but I'm standing outside. So I can say to you, take 4 strokes to the left, then inch over a half a meter to the right. That's the ladder. Now start climbing. And then when you get out, I'm standing there with a hose and I can wash the poop off you. But it's because I'm not in the poop. It doesn't mean that whoever helps you has to not have anything wrong with them. It's just that your sewer is not the same as my sewer. It's easy for me to see your sewer, not easy for me to see my own. Okay. So this is if you can't find it for yourself, it's really useful to get someone to help you to do that. Okay. That's really all I'm saying. So when you can do this, when you can actually see how it served you, And please, I just want to be very clear. It doesn't mean it was a positive experience. Please, we're not trying to change something that caused you pain into a positive experience. That's not what I'm saying. It was painful. It was rough. You really didn't like it. But what came out of it, you can see that there was growth, that there was resilience, that it guided your life to a certain extent. That makes it neutral, not good, not bad. And it gets you to the point where you go, you know what? I can be grateful for this thing in my life. And the minute you can do that, doesn't mean you want it to happen again tomorrow, but the minute you can do that, that's when you start setting yourself free. And you set the other person free, but it's not about the other person, it's about you, okay? But it does help. So, okay. So, I wanted to tell you a story. So, the reason why I know that this mirror and this thing works, okay? So, Dr. John DeMartini is this chiropractor that has this whole thing called the DeMartini method. I was very involved with it. I did his training. I did hours and hours of this work, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I don't use it that much anymore because I think there are other ways of doing it. But this part I find very useful. So the first time I went, a friend of mine, I knew nothing about it, and a friend of mine said to me, "You're a workshop junkie, go to this workshop, you'll love this guy." So I went. It was very expensive at the time. I think it was like 7,500 rand for like Saturday and Sunday. And this was, I don't know, 20 years ago. It was like 2008. So long, it was a long time ago, right? So 7,500 rand was a lot of money, the most money I'd ever paid for a workshop. So anyway, I went, and it was great in the beginning. He explains all this theory, the laws of opposites. It's all in like terms of quantum physics, the grand organized design. Like I'm in, 100% in. So then we get to doing the method, right? And the method is actually quite involved. It's quite a laborious process. And it basically says, okay, we're all going to sit and we're going to do this, and it's going to take us like 6 or 8 hours. No one's going home tonight until everyone has the breakthrough, because it used to be called the breakthrough experience, okay? So it's like it doesn't matter if we only go home at 2 a.m. Everyone's going to have the breakthrough. And there's like 80 people in the room, right? It's a lot. So anyway, and then he says, when you complete this process that you've now been working hours and hours on, it's all about owning the traits and how they benefit you and all that. Okay. It's this, but like on steroids. What you're going to do is you're going to pick a person in the room that represents the person that you did the process on. And a facilitator is going to sit with you. And if you've done this well, the person in front of you will disappear. Literally, they will become the person that you did this on, dead or alive. And the only thing that you will have to say to them is thank you and I love you. And you'll probably want to hug them. I was like, fuck that. I am not doing that. Okay. That is bullshit. I'm not sitting with a stranger, blah, blah. I think that's crap. But I'm here. I've paid all this money. I'm going to do the process. So what happened was I had a business partner, right? And he was a complete con man. Okay. And it was like a huge stress. It was like a really big betrayal. It was intense, right? And so this was the person that I could honestly tell you I probably hated the most in the world. I had more issues with him than I had with my mother, my father, my anyone. Okay. So he's the guy I picked to do it on. And it was so interesting because at one of the tea breaks, I met a guy at the coffee station and we had a little conversation. And I didn't see him again for the rest of the night. And at the end of the thing, I'd finished it and I was like, okay, well, now I've got to pick the person. And it was that same man, that man that I'd spoken to at the coffee station that morning. He didn't look anything like the guy. There was something about the eyes. I don't know what it was. I can't tell you why I picked him, right? But he represented them. So anyway, so I go and they make you sit facing the person and I didn't know this, but this guy had done this a number of times before. And so the facilitator says, okay, blah, blah, what do you want to say to this person? And all this man did was look at me. He just stared into my eyes. He didn't smile. He wasn't uncomfortable. He was 100% present. And I swear to you, as I'm sitting here, his face blurred. He became the person I did the process on. And because I had done the process completely, I had this upwelling of gratitude, literally, because I saw how my life had been catalyzed by the circumstance and by this person. And honestly, the only thing I actually said was thank you and I love you. And all I wanted to do was hug the stranger. I'm not a hugger, especially not strangers. So this is why, and this was only one of many experiences like this I've had. Okay, so I've done this a number of times, but many experiences like this. It was with help, but that's why I know that actually you can get to thank you and I love you. I've seen people do this on their rapists. I've seen people do this on their parents that molested them. I'm always astounded, all right, when this happens. because it can. But that's not the kind of thing that you can do on your own. Please, guys, I didn't do that on my own. I didn't have that experience on my own. I had that experience in a very curated environment. Okay. So it can be done. All right. So quick sticks. Now, you see, I'm taking much longer than I thought. Chinese medicine, I want to talk about the energetics because Chinese medicine provides a useful energetic perspective on forgiveness. And emotions of themselves inherently are not a problem, right? So anger inherently isn't bad. Anger is how we know that someone has crossed a boundary. That's what anger is for. You have crossed a boundary of mine. Grief isn't bad, fear isn't bad. They're normal responses to life. But what happens in Oriental medicine is we talk about this energy of the emotion becoming stuck, and it gets stuck in your physiology. So the liver and the gallbladder, which represent the wood element, their emotion is anger and resentment. But the liver is responsible for the smooth flow of ki or life essence through the blood. And if the liver is responsible for the free movement of energy through the body and emotion. So when your liver function physically is not good, it's going to be more difficult for you to allow your emotions to flow. This is why we can't leave the body out of the equation, my friends. And so, if you're finding that you're struggling to process your emotions, I'm not saying that everyone who can't process anger has a liver problem. That's not what I'm saying. But if you do actually have some sort of physiological problem, you can't actually process the emotion, then work on supporting the physical body as much as you can, because that is going to help you shift the emotion and shift the energy. So it's difficult to shift the emotion when you're eating, and I'm not trying to make this sound like a judgment, right? But like if you're taking tons of medication, or you're eating lots of processed food, or you don't drink any water, or you never move your body, if you're not actually in any way supporting your physiology, it becomes more difficult to do this energetic and emotional stuff. It just is what it is, guys. It's not a judgment. It's not a you all need to be purists. Those are just facts. If you smoke, you increase your risk of cancer. It's a fact, right? This is the same. If your physical body, so very often our mental and emotional and energetic stuckness causes the physical problem. But if you then don't support the physical body, well, and you're only working on the mental and emotional, well, then you're leaving one part of the equation out. And if you're only focused on the body, the medicine, the food, the water, the exercise, but you're not doing any work on the unconscious stuff, the stuff that's running your life, your patterns, your emotion, allowing the energy to move, well, then you've got the same problem. And we want to look at it holistically, right? Completely. So anger is a function, tells us that something isn't right, tells us that a boundary is being crossed. But if we keep on replaying the old injury and we feed the resentment because we're not actually making any attempt to let it go, then that stuck energy doesn't resolve. It stagnates and it stays in the liver, and it actually generates heat. And it can create health conditions like migraines, hot flushes, hormonal imbalances, headaches that are not just migraines, fatigue, sleep, waking up at 12 o'clock at night and not being able to sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning. All right. I'm not saying that, but a lot of that is an indicator that there's an imbalance in that physical organ, that physically and energetically, it is not actually functioning effectively. So when we hang on to this shit because we don't allow ourselves to process it, then we eventually compromise our physical health. It takes time, but we will compromise our physical health. And so, if there's any reason to do this, it would be so that you don't have to get sick. Because honestly, who needs that? Right? I mean, we can't, it happens, but who needs it? Another important part of this is that the lung, which is the metal element, the lung is about letting go. So, the emotion of the lung and the large intestine, they're connected, right? The large intestine and lung, they both take in and release. The large intestine receives food residues and it releases wastes. The lung takes in oxygen and it releases waste, right? And so they are both of those organs, our lung and large intestine, because they're coupled, are associated with release. It allows us to release what is finished. So the liver processes it, and when the liver has processed it, then the lung and the large intestine can let it go. And so Sometimes the anger is not the main issue, or it's not the whole issue. Maybe I can't let go of what happens because the lung and the large intestine cannot let it go. So you might say, well, what's the use of knowing this? Well, what's the use of knowing this is that it gives you another place that you can actually do some work if what you're doing isn't working, right? And it also, I'm hoping, inspires you to support your physical body. And then the heart, which is the seat of the Shen, right? Which is essentially the spirit. Underneath the anger and resentment, there's very often the hurt. And it's betrayal, rejection, loss, disappointment. You know what? The emotion of the heart is joy. When it's in its most beautiful form, it's radiating joy. And so when our joy is gone, then it's an indicator that there can be a problem in the heart organ function energy. So I'm angry is what you're experiencing, but underneath is the pain, the sadness, the dimming of your joy. Your heart is wounded. Your liver holds onto the anger, and the lung then struggles to let the grief go. And so when you're energetically bound to this experience, ultimately it's going to affect your body and your health. Now, I'm going to show you a quick Jinshin Jitsu to help to release this, okay? There's a safety energy lock in Jinshin Jitsu called safety energy lock number 11. Maybe one of these we'll do a whole thing on Jinshin Jitsu because it's actually, I think it's fascinating. So safety energy lock number 11 is located here on your, if you take your right hand and you just hang it on your left shoulder, you're holding safety energy lock number 11. It's on the top of your trap. And 11 in Jinshin Jitsu means judgment, getting rid of excess baggage. And 11 in numerology is a sacred number. It's associated with the spirit. It's a spiritual number. And 11 is a high octave 2. And 2 is about being able to see both sides. We can only get rid of excess baggage when we can see the balance in the situation. And if we can't see the balance in the situation, the Jinshin Jitsu, if you hold safety energy lock number 11, okay, so you're going to hold, okay, so just think of it this way. Take your right hand and place it over on your left trap. Take your left hand and place the heel of your hand on your hip bone. And then let your fingers lie in the crease between your torso and your thigh. Now, that safety energy lock in your groin is called safety energy lock number 15. And safety energy lock number 15 is a 6. 6 is all about balance and harmony. And 15 literally means joy, laughter, and happiness. And when you hold safety energy lock number 11 and safety energy lock number 15, you harmonize all the energy centers on the left side of the body if you're doing it on the left. And if you do it on the right, you're harmonizing all the energy centers on the right. So if you are working on feeling your feelings, if you are working on trying to process your emotions, you can do it while holding these two safety energy locks with intention. Because when you do that, you are working with the energy of the body and you're helping to let things flow. And safety energy lock number 11 helps us to let things go. So that's how we can weave the energetics, the physical, the energetic, the emotional, the unconscious stuff, the mental stuff, how reality fits in, how it all gels to form reality. That's how we can weave it all together. And you might think, oh my God, it's going to take me 27 flipping years to get to forgiveness. It doesn't have to. What it takes is consistency. You can't just go, oh, well, thanks, Gesha. Oh, well, this is taking too long. Or, oh, I've tried this Jinshin Jitsu once and it didn't work because I didn't forgive anyone after 20 minutes. Guys, let's just be realistic, okay? It's not going to happen after 20 minutes. So, that is just some of the energetics that go with it. Now, Antoinette has a beautiful, simple tool that she's going to explain to you. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Antoinette. And then I think that's my job mostly done here on the talking. And then we'll have we'll be able to have a chat and maybe a question or two, and then we'll see how things unfold. So Antoinette, over to you. Where's Antoinette?
In about 2010, I think heart maths became quite a big thing. Everybody's probably heard of it. And so did I, but I clean forgot about it. And the Heart Maths Institute discovered that there's actually a second brain in our heart. And I've been a bit dysregulated lately, as people know, and I found this simple little process, which is very, very powerful, is that it's a very, very short process of just while you're taking a breath, say something like, I welcome peace, I release the past. We'll go through it now. I just want to explain it first. But while you're doing that, you don't have to focus on your breath. You're just taking the breath, but you're focusing on the heart brain. And that's it. It's just incredible how it regulates and brings peace. So,
Can I just ask a question? Sorry, Jeanette. Sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to ask a question. So, how do we know? I mean, so when you say focus on the heart brain, do we just take our awareness to our heart area and choose to put our focus there? Is that what you mean by focus on the heart brain?
yeah, okay. I'll try and find the clip. I didn't save it, but if you think about it, in our brain is where our fear response lies. Okay, our amygdala, that ego stuff that tries to keep us safe, but it does the perpetual worrying, the rumination, the catastrophizing. But our heart brain, and it actually is a real brain they've discovered in there. It's small, but it's actually the place where the love and the potential connection to higher self lies. So I was always trying to do this kind of thing from my brain. So I was focusing on my breath and I was going, I welcome peace, I release the past. I welcome peace, I release the past. But it wasn't changing the kind of anxiety loop or the thought loop until I heard this little clip. So now what I do is while I'm saying, I welcome peace, I release the past, I actually consciously focus my attention and my energy on my heart.
Okay, cool.
But
Thanks.
with the thought that I'm focusing on my heart brain. So I literally, it's a very quick thing. You don't have to think about it. I'm dropping from my head brain to my heart brain. And I often just say I'm safe because at night I feel completely dysregulated. But in this case, you can just say, I welcome peace, I release the past while you're literally focusing on your heart brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
I welcome peace, I release the past. It just immediately creates calm and regulation. It's not going to rewire your brain, it's not a long term solution, but in the moment, when you're freaking out, just that small intention to focus on the heart brain with the little
Right.
mantra rather than the head brain makes a very big difference.
Thank you. That has led me to, I wanted to actually say something about just like one thing about this astrology, right? Because it's the eclipse night tonight, right? And so, I mean, we're doing this on the eclipse night. And there's a lot of stuff on the astrology, and Jeanette has shared some amazing clips. But the one thing that I want to say about the astrology is that this eclipse is happening near the south node. So the moon has nodes, right? And we've just had a change of the nodes. The south node is in Leo and the north node is in Aquarius. And the south node is where we come from. The south node is like our karma, and the north node is where we're moving towards. And the south node, this eclipse is happening over the south node, which is in Leo, right? And Leo is the it's associated with the heart. And Leo is about radiance, right? And so this is not that we're coming from our radiance. We can be coming from our radiance, but actually the emotion of the heart is joy. But the negative emotion of the heart is pretending. It's the masking. It's all the masks we put on to actually try and navigate our way through the world. And so this eclipse is about us dropping the masks. And that's going to be uncomfortable for many of us. It's about us dropping who we think we need to be and stepping into the truth of the heart, which is that radiant, beautiful,
Love.
confident Leo, right? The love. And so this little exercise, sorry, Antoinette, so this exercise about dropping into your heart is really, really valuable. Just not always, I mean, it's always valuable, but particularly at this time. And just knowing that the eclipse is the opportunity for you to ask yourself, where am I not being true to who I really am? Where am I
Yeah,
not being true?
that That can feel very unsafe. That's what I
Very.
felt because my ego has had such a strong grip on trying to keep me safe in certain ways that I have to drop now. But when I drop them and the peace comes and the love, my ego starts kicking back with self sabotage and I start feeling dysregulated and unsafe. So for me, it's been this and me. I'm the queen who never bypasses. I hate bypassing tools. And when I heard this, I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But literally just focusing on your heart I say, I'm safe now. I'm safe. I'm safe. It's safe. I'm safe. And suddenly I'm not feeling dysregulated anymore because it's my head that's doing the dysregulation and I'm just
Mm.
feeling regulated and peaceful. I can't explain it. I just know it works. And if it works for me, it'll probably work for
For
most
sure.
people.
Actually, as you were talking, what came to me, I'm just going to stop the share here. What came to me is that your heart is innervated, your vagus nerve, which is part of your sympathetic nervous system, a parasympathetic nervous system. It's the one that is the relaxation one. It innervates your heart, a branch to your lung, a branch to your stomach, and a branch to your intestine, right? It connects your brain and your entire gut via your heart. So when we go into the heart, we're actually activating the vagus. Physiologically, we're activating our vagus nerve. When we stay in the brain, we're not doing that because that's only the nucleus that's in the brain. The actual branching where it really starts working is in the heart and in the lung and in the gut. It doesn't go to the liver, but it does go to the gut. Interesting. So,
I'd encourage you, if you haven't, to listen to Loretta's episodes on the heart, on the liver and gallbladder, and the gut. I listened to the liver one twice last night at 12 o'clock when I couldn't sleep. It's very helpful.
I can imagine nothing worse than listening to myself at 12 o'clock at night. But thank you, Antoinette. And I'm so glad that it's helpful for you.
Well, I can tell you right now, listening to podcasts and audiobooks has been a regulatory saving grace for me. So we're all different because I've been waking up at 12 o'clock many nights, and you reminded me that's the liver gallbladder. And that's where our spirit, our Shen resides, our destiny. And this North Node now, this time astrologically now, this month, is pressing on our destiny, what our soul's here for this lifetime, what our karma is that we've come to process, what the past lives are if you believe in that. And that, for some of us like me, is hitting right on my Leo. I'm a Leo with Leo, Leo, Leo. Put our hands on our hearts, focus on our hearts. Divine light, I come before you with an open heart. Please help me release the weight of anger, hurt, and resentment that I've carried. Where there has been pain, let there be peace. Where there has been judgment, please let there be understanding. I choose to forgive not because it was right, but because my soul longs to be free. Bless those who have hurt me, and bless me too, that we may both walk in the light of compassion. Cleanse my heart, renew my spirit, and guide me into a life filled with grace, love, and peace.
It was so beautiful. Thank you. That was all Antoinette. She put that one together. Thank you. That was really amazing. Okay, lovelies. We shall see you next Wednesday. We'll see you on the group. I'll get the recording done and Antoinette will do her magic and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Love you all.
Love
We
you
got
all.
this.
Bye.